Hi everybody, welcome to Dram Daddy Whiskey. I'm Dan, and tonight we're going to find out which of the 2022 releases of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, the king of value for barrel proof bourbons, was the best to come out this year. But first, we got to review the latest of those releases, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C922. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is a really consistent product in many ways. You always know you're going to get 3 batches every year, the A, the B, and the C. You know those 3 releases are going to come out in the winter early in the year, sometime in the spring to early summer, and then in the fall. You know that it's going to be 12 years old, and you know that it's going to be quality bourbon, because it has been for years. But the flavor profile is not consistent. Each of the 3 batches that comes out every year are blended to make the best batch they can at that time. This often results in unique batches or batches that taste pretty different from one another. Consistency is not the most important priority for Elijah Craig when putting the barrel proof product together. In recent years, 2020 was a landmark year for Elijah Craig Barrel Proof that had 2 really highly sought after bottles in B520 and C922. 2021 is largely considered to be a pretty big step back for the brand. There weren't really a whole lot of batches that people wrote home about, at least not consistently. 2022, however, is seen to be a bit of a return to form. For the most part, each batch has gotten pretty positive reviews. Now let's see what we think of C922. Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C922. As I mentioned, every Elijah Craig Barrel Proof product is 12 years old. This one comes in at 124.8 proof or 62.4 ABV. The ABVs on these are all different too. It's just unique to each batch. And as it says on the label, it's uncut straight from the barrel without chill filtration. So we should be getting full flavor on that bad boy. Let's see what we get on the nose. Ooh. Hits you. That ABV is definitely there. There's something fruity. There's definitely some oak on there. Not getting any hints of nut on this, which sometimes I do get from Heaven Hill. I am getting a lot of oak, more oak than I usually get from ECBP. It's fresh, like there might be a tiny hint of like veering toward mintiness in that rye, but definitely no mint that you could pick up on outright. And maybe some nutmeg and cinnamon on the palate. There's oak and spice. Kind of matches the nose in that regard. Not a whole lot of sweetness on that first sip. Might just be my palate getting used to the ABV though. Second sip. Okay, things are calming down a little bit. The oak is coming through a little bit more. Nice sweet oak profile on this one, especially on the front and the mid palate. And the finish is strong. Oaky, spicy. This is almost like a spicy cola. Like if you had a cola that you put like some cinnamon and some nutmeg in, maybe a tiny bit of brown sugar or like syrup, and then just held it in like a canteen made of oak or something like that. Man, this might be the oakiest Elijah Craig Barrel Proof I've ever had. It's almost got a bit of like a dustiness to it, not quite, but almost. But without a really strong sense of sweet corn. Like that part of the mash isn't coming through super clearly, at least not in any of the specific flavor notes I'm picking out of this. So the summary of this is really oak, spice, everything nice. And maybe there's something a little fruity there too. Maybe a little grapey, or maybe like a plum or something. Doesn't go quite into the grapiness as like a Buffalo Trace product at all, but it's almost like a dark plum note or like pipe tobacco almost. There's a little bit of that sort of like rich, dark, almost fruity sweetness there. The first time I had this, I remember thinking that it probably could stand to open up a little bit, and I think it's done that to some extent. And pulling more out of this, the sweet oak is very, very welcome, and it's a lot more present than it was the first time I had it. And I was getting more of like a brown sugar note that now has turned more into like a cola sort of note, which is good. It's really enjoyable. There's not a whole lot more that I could ask for from a Heaven Hill product. The age statement on Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is rarely the focus of any one of its releases. There are a lot of other 12-year-old products that you see and you think, oh, it must be pretty oaky. But I never come into drinking an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof thinking that, even though it is 12 years old. But this one, it really makes that oak front and center. And I love sweet oak. And it punches with that sweet oak, but not in a way that's too overpowering. It's not dry or astringent at all. You do get some spice on the back end that can prickle you a bit, but the oak itself doesn't seem to be producing any sort of astringency. So what score do I give the whiskey in this glass? I've got only good things to say about it. It's nuanced, it evolves a bit. Flavors I do pick up on are all good. I'll give this Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C922 an 8.7. It is really great stuff, but let's see how it measures up against the other Elijah Craig Barrel Proof releases of 2022. And I should say the proof on all of these ranges between 120 or so. So 120.8 for the A122, it's 121 even for the B522, and again 124.8 for the C. Start off with A122. It smells lighter, sweet corn, less oak. I don't really pick up on a lot of that at all. Bright notes, little bit of ethanol I'm picking up on, and there's a tad bit bitter. On its own, I remember liking this fine, but thinking it was nothing really to write home about. Coming off of the C922, it's a little unimpressive. That corn sweetness is up front, and then it sort of falls flat a little bit on the mid palate and the back palate, and it seems like it's the ethanol that's kind of carrying the way, giving a little bit of punch. And then there's a little bit of rye spice that kicks in on the back palate on the B522, the nose on the B. Sweet brown sugar. The nose on this one is like a cola. Maybe like a root beer, actually. The spice was more prevalent in the C922 than the B522, but it really does hit me kind of like a root beer on the nose. You know, where you get that sweetness, but you also get that punchy, tangy almost spice from, I don't know, whatever it is that makes root beer spicy. But then it's also creamy, like a cream soda almost, on the palate. This is easily the easiest to drink of the three. Goes down very easily. It's just sweet. There's not a whole lot more to it than that at all. It's enjoyable, but it is not complex at all. Second sip just to be sure. So sweet, a little spice, and actually a little bit of astringency coming on the back palate in the finish now, which I did not expect, but that sweetness on the front palate is really the star of the show here. It's not as obviously corny as the sweetness on the A batch was, but that's definitely where it's coming from. Maybe with like a touch of some maple in there that makes the whole thing taste kind of like more like a cola than the nose would have suggested. Well, the nose made it seem like a root beer because it had that spice on the nose. The palate is almost like a watered down or a flat cola or something like that. And back to the C batch. Oh, that oak is amazing on this one. It's sweet, it's rich. Oh, it's incredible. On the palate too, there's a lot more going on with this one, and everything going on with it is really good. The rankings on these are pretty easy for me. Third place, A122. When I first got this on its own, it was good, but it doesn't stand up to either of these other two releases. Second place, B522. A good drink, easy to drink, but not a whole lot going on there. And then first place, C922. This is a really, really great bourbon. It actually reminds me a little bit of my favorite Elijah Craig Barrel Proof to date, I think, B520. I kind of wonder how this will measure up. Maybe a future video. If you have a favorite batch from this year, let us know in the comments. Really interested in hearing what you've been able to find. And with that in mind, it's time to give this one a grade. C922, a really great bourbon, the best batch they've had this year, which really means it's probably the best batch that's been around in 2 years. C921 was pretty good though too. But what grade would I give this? You can get this bottle for around 60 bucks. A barrel proof, 12-year-old, non-chill filtered banger. This is an easy A+. It's fantastic, great bourbon, for a price that's cheaper than most new distilleries or NDPs or craft producers are making today. A+ all day. What's your favorite batch from 2022? Have you gotten to try them all? Were there any you missed out on? Did I get it wrong with A122? Let us know what you think. And check out this video to see what I thought of the weeded brother to Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, Heaven Hill's Larceny Barrel Proof releases from 2022. Till next time, cheers.